Hello and welcome to my Model Corner Project 19 Viewer's Choice 6. Our second place winning selection is the monstrous B-52 bomber jet. Even at 72 scale, this will be the biggest model I've ever built, beating out a 24 scale Stuka I constructed many years ago. Let's see what we have.
Oh boy, a model plane! Boy, I bet the other kids will be jealous when they see this.
Getting started, there is a decent amount of detail in both the cockpit and mid-deck stations. On the other hand, much of this will not be visible at all unless you are building a cross-sectional view model or some unusual diorama. You can deem it unnecessary to incorporate these items or take some satisfaction knowing these features are contained within. For our project, we'll do just some general grime and some detailing of the ejection seats and the control panels, but not all out. Although we are doing a B-52G model, the B-52 has a long history and they were built before I was born and may continue flying even after I'm gone. So I'm including information on other types of B-52s within this video. We have some typical beginning construction and preliminary painting to accomplish, so I'll join you again once we get some of that out of the way. The original kit contained some inaccuracies in the nose and tail section. Improved aftermarket versions from Modelcollect can be ordered. They advertise 2 to 5 weeks shipping time. Back with you. For the bomb bay and the gear sections, we'll add some black oil paint mixed with mineral spirits to create shadows, grime, and to emphasize the details. And we'll use our cotton swab to clean up the areas. I always install the landing gear towards the end of any project for ease of building and painting an aircraft while also avoiding damaging those pieces. However, I did think that adding them later was going to be difficult on this kit, so I decided to install them without the wheels for now. Based on how this was engineered, I am concerned that the gear may not be able to handle the weight of this very large model. We'll have to see. There's a lot going on here, and the chances for a misalignment or difficulty in mating the fuselage halves are greatly increased in this case, not a preferred state of affairs. It took some fidgeting to get all this together, but all in all, not as demanding as it would seem at first glance. Let's set aside the main fuselage to cure for a while. While we wait, we can work on the tail flight control surfaces and part of the aft end. Moving on to the power plants, we of course have 8 engines contained in 4 pods to work on. We'll highlight and simulate light reflection off the edges of the fan blades by dry brushing on some flat white. The cowling has a natural panel seam line that opens as a clamshell for engine maintenance that we'll want to retain to a degree.
Kindly speak English and drop the vernacular.
Vernacular? That's a derby.
Drop the vernacular.
For our main wings, we'll drill out the optional holes to include our external wing tanks, the weapons racks, and before we mate the wing halves, we'll add some internal paint. Since this is a rather large and bulky model, it will be challenging to maneuver this B-52 to paint and weather without risking collapsing or shearing off the landing gear. With this in mind, I've created a cradle out of styrofoam packaging to set the fuselage within so that work can be performed while reducing the hair-raising possibility of damaging the bomber. Even though we have the old Crow rendering to build, I really like the camouflage pattern colors and the dirty faded leaked fluid look of this B-52. It's glorious, and it's really what I prefer in a model build. By going in this direction, the camo pattern included in the instruction guide is not equivalent. I searched the internet to get the camouflage pattern of the Knight Rider for use as painting templates. I noticed slight variations even among B-52 bombers using the same colors, but I found a great match and calculated the enlargement ratio I needed to create my guides, and I went to a local print shop so I could produce them. The magnification ratio for my case was 446%, and considering the scale of the actual model, this part of the job had to be printed out as a mosaic. We'll begin with our black shading, which will also act as our primer. To ease the building and painting aspects at this point, we'll work on the horizontal stabilizers and vertical tail separately. A dry fit check demonstrated that these will fit with no need to make adjustments or add filler. This is not the case for the main wings, so we'll have to deal with that later as a larger unit. Also, by working on these flight control surfaces first, we can test out our camouflage color choices and determine how well they perform towards our painting objectives. We can do the easier camouflage painting part first, which is the lower half of the jet, tanks, and engines. I purposely keep the layer uneven in places to get the effect of shadows, paint erosion, and grunge. Taking advantage of this dark coat will mask off the walkway line markings. I measured the kit's gray colored boundary decals as reference to make my strips. As I was setting up, I noticed that these ECM type domes were missing from the model. I quickly scratch built some pieces by cutting off some sprue, shaping, and then sanding them. Returning to the horizontal stabilizers, I use our printed templates. For the vertical tail, I'm using actual photo images enlarged of the vertical tail of the Knight Rider B-52 and an enlarged tail of a similar B-52 camo on the right side. We can now begin adding our templates. The patterns have distinct borders, so there is no need to create a diffuse feathered edge between the colors. Essentially, there are 4 different colors we need to apply as listed on the screen. These can be considered out of the Paint Barn standards. Since we're affecting a used look, exact matches are not necessary for our purposes. We'll supplement our marbling method by throwing on what I call a spaghetti pattern over the NATO black, which will enhance our upcoming colored coats. As usual, we'll just twist and turn the airbrush randomly over the pieces. Now we can add our cutouts. Starting with the lightest camo color, we'll also apply in a wandering fashion and then fill in as desired. Then in an identical process, we'll add each of the other colors. Making custom paint colors is not an easy task for me, as I struggle to find that perfect shade I hope to achieve. But I must say I'm pleased I've come up with something that I'm satisfied with on the first attempt. And now for a mini reveal to see how all the colors work in concert. Now let's look at our walkway boundary lines. We still have panel detailing and weathering to add later, but we have a nice start here. For our engine pods and wing tanks, we have this wavy pattern employed on the sides. Examining B-52 images of these areas, I found that there were inconsistencies in the actual waveforms. Some were stormy and others were calmer, and some were just plain straight lines. Sometimes there was a mix of these designs on the very same B-52. The engine mounts might not even match the top of the wing color where they were attached. From my flight line experiences on the F-16, the mission came first and aesthetics came second. Seeing these variances is not surprising to me. Consequently, you can do just about anything on your model. You can't really go wrong. I really wrestled as to whether to add the wings first or not before applying the black shading and camouflage. As you can see with the dry fit check, the model is rather bulky and cumbersome. Although working on each element may entail some touching up later, I elected to do each piece separately. We have arrived at the biggest painting task required involving a single color. It's a nice day with stratocumulus overcast and no winds outside, so we'll tackle this portion outdoors. I apply an initial coat, keeping the airbrush always moving, and then begin filling in. Returning to the main wings, we'll add the underside white and also do our marbling supplementation on the top surfaces. Since we built up confidence in our earlier color tests, we are ready to mask off and paint our camouflage on the much larger main wings and the body of the bomber. We'll dry fit the wings to the main fuselage tube to line up our color pattern borders between the separate sections. I noticed at this time that the illustration I was referencing cast a shadow from the vertical tail onto the right stabilizer, making part of the lighter camo number 1 appear as the dark camo number 3, so we need to repaint this area. We'll apply an initial gloss protective coat to our sections. Our panel lines are quite pronounced on this model, and the black shading has taken care of highlighting some of these edges. Using a mixture of black oil paint and mineral spirits again, we'll fill in along these borders. After allowing the wash to set up for about 3 to 5 minutes, we can take a cotton swab lightly moistened in clean mineral spirits and gently clean the areas. Wipe perpendicular to the lines or at the greatest angle possible to avoid lifting out the wash. The B-52 is known for its dark engine exhaust plumes. These create soot buildup under the wings aft of the nozzles. Dry fitting the engine mounts, we can trace out the areas we need to highlight this effect with pencil, some oil paint wash, then airbrush in some black and supplement with some pastel powder. Since we deviated from the original kit livery, we need to pivot and use decals I got from Caracal created for the B-52 Golf and Hotel versions. These are nice emblems and are thin, durable, and with limited carrier film edging. Using our decal set solution, we begin laying down our stickers. For good measure, I applied another clear coat in areas where the markings will go, just in case the weathering removed our original layer. This kit does not contain a set of conventional bombs, and if we want to utilize cruise missile armament or the Tomahawk, our time period is narrowed where these and the B-52 camouflage pattern we've chosen were concurrently in use, which is roughly the mid-1980s to about 1991. We're now ready to add the wings, vertical tail, horizontal stabilizers, flaps, and working our way outward from the centerline, we have the gear doors, bomb bay doors, tires, the Tomahawks, engine pods 2 and 3, then pods 1 and 4, our external fuel tanks, and finally the outrigger training wheels. While we're at it, we can coat the underside with a dull finish. Very carefully, we roll out 180 degrees. This felt much like maneuvering a surfboard in a broom closet. So we begin applying a dull coat to the upper portion and sides of our bomber before adding in our glass pieces. We're finally about done and ready to put this B-52G out there on the ready alert line. Stay tuned after our final pre-flight lookover for a hint on the next upcoming project. Take care, and we'll see you later.